Good afternoon. I'm Chris Scherer, Member Communications Director of the Society of Broadcast Engineers and the host of this month's episode of the SBE WEBxtra, the SBE chapter of the web. This is a monthly SBE meeting usually held on the third Monday of the month. The SBE is the Association for Broadcast and Multimedia Technology Professionals with more than 4,500 members, mostly in the U.S., but also around the world. It's these members who make the SBE a successful organization. While there is a small staff at the SBE National Office, the real propulsion behind the SBE is the volunteer efforts of members. Today, we talked to one of those volunteers. He's been an SBE member since 1981. He's served several local chapters over the years, and he has served on the SBE National Board of Directors and in every national officer position, including the seat he now holds, SBE President. He's also an SBE Fellow member. I think you might know who I'm talking about. We'll talk to Ted Hand today on the SBE WEBxtra. But first, here's your SBE member update for March 18, 2024. The SBE is celebrating 60 years this year. Events and activities are being planned throughout the year, including at the NAB show. Watch our usual outlets, the website, the Signal, SBE News for details. Part of this is a project just announced by the Program of Certification called the Diamond Project. If you held SBE certification and let it lapse before 2023, you can apply to reobtain your SBE certification without taking the exam. There's a special application and fee structure for this. Get all the details at sbe.org/Diamond Project. SBE certification has career benefits, so take advantage of this offer if you qualify. On the education side, we have lots of webinars to talk about. RF Multipath is the topic for the live webinar on March 21st. John Keane and Gary Cavell of Cavell Mertz Capital Aerospace are the presenters. They will delve into the intricacies of RF Multipath, exploring its impact on both fixed and mobile broadcast reception and its implications for point-to-point microwave systems. On April 25th, the 2024 SBE RF Safety Course will be presented by Stephen Lockwood, Senior Engineer and Partner with Hatfield and Dawson Consulting Engineers. Updated annually, this course covers regulations and requirements for a safe RF environment, providing compliance at a site, signage, and other issues. On May 9, Jeff Welton will cover LTE interference. Even if an FM signal is within its required specs, there could be a harmonic in the LTE band. Jeff will cover steps to mitigate the interference. You can always access the entire library of webinars by SBE presentations on demand. For more information on these and all the webinars by SBE, go to sbe.org/webinars. The SBE has laid the plans for another SBE NS workshop to be held just before the 2024 NAB show exhibit floor opens. It will be held in the West Hall at the Las Vegas Convention Center. Details are online, so save the dates, April 12 and 13. Separate registration for the workshop is required. You can do that through the NAB show website, nabshow.com. Get all the details on the SBE NS workshop at the NAB show, including topics and presenter bios at the SBE website. The next local certification chapter exam window is in June. Apply by April 26th. If you don't want to wait, or if a local chapter exam is not convenient for you, private proctoring is available. More information on SBE certification is online at sbe.org/certification. And that's your SBE member update for March 18th, 2024. As SBE members, we contribute to helping our local chapters thrive. Every effort, great or small, is appreciated. The volunteer work can extend to the national level, and our guest today is one of those people. Ted Hand was elected president of the SBE last fall, taking office at the end of September. And now that he's had a few months to get into his first term, we get to hear from Ted on his broadcasting experience, how he got involved with the SBE, and some insight into his goals and plans for the society. So first off, how are you, Ted? Welcome to the WEBxtra.
Hello, Chris. Good to be with you here today.
Great.
Good to sit and talk with you for a while. I've been president now for about 5 months, and we're deep into it and trying to get a lot of things done. We've worked with our committees. The first thing that we've done is work with the chairman of the committee chairs of all the different deals, and we've created a standard operating procedure, an SOP, on what each committee does and what the chairman does for each of that. We've also reintroduced an SOP for what board members are supposed to do and what Each board member is expected of them, and each officer is expected of them. So we're rolling that out. Some other things we're working on, we're IEEE BTS. We're working with them to come up with some sort of group plan for certification and education. That's still in the very early stages, but we hope to have more to say on that near the end of the year. And we've also had discussions with Australian Broadcasting on certification and education there, and the possibility of opening a chapter in Australia. And we're working on that and seeing how that goes.
Wow. Okay. Well, we jumped right into the busy work as it was.
Yes, we did.
So, but it's not unusual. I mean, the SBE obviously is,
Yes.
Despite changes in officers and board, the work continues, and there are some efforts that we're working on today that started a president or two ago, sometimes even longer, and it sometimes can take a little while to get some of these off the ground. But
yeah, it's a continuous stream from one to the other.
Yep, it's good to hear
pick up the
continuation of the efforts and improvements
Yes.
and new steps as well. So let's step back. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into broadcasting? What got you interested? How did you get the bug, as we say?
Started out, grew up in northeastern North Carolina, in around Elizabeth City, Camden area. Went to community college, was actually going to start out to be an architect. And then because I like to draw and mechanical drawing, but then I realized that architect is more than just drawing. You have to be able to be creative stuff. And I sort of failed at that, but then got into electronics. And one of the instructors that worked at the community college worked at the local radio station in Elizabeth City and was looking for somebody for weekend. And I said, well, okay, that's something to do. Didn't really had done any broadcasting before, but did a shift, announcer shift at an AM station on the weekends, and then got in it that way. And then with electronics, it all worked together. And then the instructor there had told everybody, if you can get a FCC first class ticket, then you don't have to take this course and I'll give you an A. And I said, well, okay, that's incentive. So studied, got the third, got the second, and got the first. And then, like I said, I showed my first class permit ticket, got an A in the course and didn't have to take it. And from then on, it worked my way up. Decided to go get my bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from Old Dominion University in Norfolk. And then applied for a job at a TV station in Norfolk, a startup independent. And then, I was just hoping to do like bench work, but ended up being transmitter guy and became the assistant chief engineer while I was still in college and got stuck with a transmitter. So then that's different paths, work for radio and TV, your studio guy, your transmitter guy. I went the transmitter path in RF. And then worked on transmitters, and then that job got me another job as a transmitter supervisor. And then I stepped my way along and whatever. During that time, though, I noticed that somebody had told me, well, they have a local group of engineers get together every month. You may want to be a part of it. I didn't know what it, had never heard of it. And so, yeah, and I went there, and it's a group called the Society of Broadcast Engineers. So I started in there and got it, filled out the application and for membership, and became a member in May of 1981. I'm in the 6,700 for membership numbers. Not as the years go by. At the first one, that wasn't a big deal, but as the years go by, that number props down at the bottom of the list. So, and worked my way up through there and through different positions and locations and stations in Raleigh, and then back in Norfolk, and then finally back in Charlotte. But then I noticed the thing they were looking for board directors. The thing came out, and we had a local discussion in Norfolk about how we feel like we weren't getting any representation in Norfolk about certain questions that come up. So I said, well, okay, I'll just make a call, and literally called the Indianapolis office and said, what does it take to be on to run for board? And he said, well, give me your name. They got my name, and we'll put it to the nominating committee. The next thing I knew, I ran. That was in 2002, and was voted on and won that 2002 election. My first board meeting was in Phoenix, Arizona. And Troy Pennington was president then.
Yep.
And ran on there for 2 years. And the election came up again. And I thought, okay, I'll just run for re-election, and lost.
Oh.
And it was a crushing loss because, as we know, we vote for 6 board members for each election. And the nominating committee does vote. Sometimes they get 7 or 8 or 10 or 11 or whatever. Well, that year they only did 7 people. And when you run for an election where you're choosing the top 6 and you're the only one, you're the only loser, that's a crushing blow. But I took it. I said, okay, well, I'll just be one of those people. And you and I both know those board members that come on, do one term, and you never hear them again. It was in Texas, that the board meeting in 2004, the fall one was in Texas, TAB. And I wasn't even going to go. I said, well, I'm not going to, there's no need to even go to the board because I'm not going to be whatever. But that year I was the webmaster and the frequency coordinator for Hampton Roads. And we won best website and won best frequency coordinator. So okay, 1, 2. So I really went to that meeting just to win the 2 awards. So we went to the meeting and got there. And then that night they always had the reception. And I was feeling kind of bad. And I was just sitting there. I was just sitting there in my drink in the corner. And Terry Bond, who was past president, came up, and he came over to me and said, you know, I understand you lost. I know you're not coming back. But I think you do really good work and you should run again next April. I said, no, Terry, it wasn't just whatever. And maybe it's just not to be. He said, no, you really need to run. I think there's some good in you. And I think you really believe in SBE. And I think you should run and think about it. So I said, okay. And I just sort of, and he only stayed there this wasn't a long conversation. It was like 5-7 minutes. And he moved on, and I thought about it and really didn't think about it until next April. I said, you know what, maybe I will. I'll just see how it goes. And if it doesn't, whatever. And then I won that election, and then I moved on to the board. And then later on, you became president, and you saw something in me because I remember you called me and says, hey, do you want to be on the executive committee? I said, okay, sure. I've just only been here on whatever, but you saw something in me, or you couldn't find anybody else. I don't know what. But anyway, when you, under your presidency, I got on the executive board, executive committee, and then moved from that, and then ran for secretary and was secretary for 4 straight terms. And then I had to sit out. I had been, no, I didn't. I was run out of time for secretary, but then I ran back for the board, and then I had to sit out.
Right. And
then somebody thought I was treasurer, and then it worked back in and became treasurer for another term, and then vice president and president. The moral is if Terry Bond had not come over and given me that 5-minute talk, I wouldn't be talking to you today as the president of SBE, because I would never have run again. And all the things of being secretary and treasurer and being the national frequency coordinating chairman and being on the executive, all that would have not have existed because I would have not have run again. And I thank Terry for that. And the point is, if you know somebody, a coworker, somebody in the business, a friend or whatever, who's just had a rough go or hasn't gone something that way, just spend 5-10 minutes with them, give them a good talk, push them up. And sometimes you think, well, that really won't do anything, but I'm a true that makes a real difference. You can make a difference in somebody's life and somebody's career in just a 5 to 10 minute talk with somebody. Because like I said, if it hadn't been that, none of this, the last 18 or 20 years, as far as SBE for me, would not have existed.
Yep.
And I'm always thankful to Terry and Linda, because Linda was there too. And I've always thanked Linda for that also. So that's how I got into SBE. And like I said, I've been secretary, and I guess if you looked it up, I probably, if not the longest person, I'm near the top of people of years working as either on the board or as an officer. If I'm not at the top, I'm up there in the top 2 or 3. But I really believe in SBE. I think it's a good cause. I think there's a lot of good fellowship there. There's a lot of trading of information, a lot of mentoring. The certification part of it, I really truly believe it's not just smoke. I really truly believe what I think, that SBE is important to the broadcast field and what it brings to the membership.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, Terry's a great guy. We all miss him.
Yeah. Yes.
I think a lot of us probably have somebody we can credit with the nudge or the push that we needed to get involved in some way. Any other mentors, advisors in your career path who've kind of helped you along?
At the local level, because like I said, when I had joined SBE, I was working at the Independent in Norfolk. It was a startup. It had only been running about 6 or 7 months when I got there. I mean, we played commercials on 3/4 cassettes, and we literally had 4 machines. So you had each spot in the break, you had to start each machine and thread them up. I mean, it was, and we had old 16 millimeter projectors in the back running cartoons. I mean, it was a true independent, and I was like the low guy on the list. But I went to the meetings, and I sat in the back of the room. And I've done something that I always say: you need to listen. Some people come in and start talking, and I believe one of those, you just need to listen and feel the room and see what's going on. And had some good people there. John Heimel, who we know, John was a board member and a fellow there from Hampton Roads. John was a big engineer there and whatever, and I was thankful that somebody like him would help somebody, 23-year-old kid from me who didn't know from one end of the screwdriver to the other. But others, him and Paul Heck, who passed away, and Bill Swartz, who's still alive and kicking there in Hampton Roads. These people took the time to go and help, a 23-year-old startup on what to do and how to do it. And you should try this. And if you need help with something, here's my number. You give me a call. And I'm very thankful to those people, those 3, to help me along at the local level. And one other person, Joe Davis. Some people may know Joe Davis. He's a RF consultant, has his own firm. He was once president of the FCC consultant firm. He was president of that. Joe and I graduated together at Old Dominion. I mean, there's a picture of us sitting side by side on a graduation thing. So, and I've known Joe 30 years, 40 years. So we go way back. But these are all people that helped me, and very thankful for them.
Very good. Very good. I'm guessing you've probably influenced a few people yourself, not to put you on the spot and name some more names, but
I would like to think that I have some people that I've always opened the door. I've never shut anybody. I had a lot of people there when I worked at WABY and in Norfolk. When I was in the maintenance side, that we had hired some master control operator. And I remember one special person. She was hired, Denise Mastrola. She was hired as she'd gone to Virginia Tech as a communication, but the only job she could find was in running audio and in master control. And she ran master control and audio, and then actually liked the engineering side, and then went back, entered Old Dominion to take the engineering course that I had taken. And today she's the assistant chief engineer at WABY, and she started out as an audio operator back in 82, I think. But she's now the assistant chief, and I think she's going to end up retiring this year, as myself. I think she's retiring this year too. So, but I feel that I hope that I have, because my grandfather always told me something once: you need to learn one thing every day, and you need to teach somebody one thing every day. And not that we do that every day, but I've helped. I've tried to mentor people when I was here in Charlotte, as I'm going out the door and trying to teach the next director of engineering behind me. And I felt that I did that when I was at TKR in Norfolk, and I did that at WABY. There's some people that work there and have moved on, but I hope that I moved them along somewhere the way or encouraged them.
Very good. So you mentioned receiving some national awards for website and frequency coordination of the past. I know you've kind of stayed within the same general region, not necessarily in the same market, but Virginia, North Carolina. So tell me which chapters you've been involved with over your time with the SBE.
Chapter 54 in Norfolk. We call it Hampton Roads. They used to call it Tidewater. It's funny if you live in that area. It's a weird part of the country because it has 6 major towns: Norfolk, Portsmouth, Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, Suffolk, Newport News, and Hampton, all butt up against each other. And people didn't know that, but at one time it had more radio stations in that part of the country than any other part in the U.S. because you remember in the old days, the city would be licensed for whatever. So you'd have 3 or 4 stations licensed in Norfolk and 3 or 4 to Chesapeake. And at one time, there were like 42 radio stations in one little area where you could throw a rock and hit any of them.
Wow.
But Tidewater was sort of on the south side. The people on the north side of Williamsburg and Hampton and Newport News and James City County never really considered it. So I was one of those that came up and said, well, we need to change this to Hampton Roads, just to try to draw in more whatever. And it drew in a few more people, what they call the Peninsula area. So changed the name to Hampton Roads. We won, the website there was run by the local PBS station, WHRO. And they got it going and whatever, but I thought that it could need a little bit more. So I said, well, do y'all mind if I tinker around with it? And I know now you can buy software than all that does websites. I was the guy that actually would type on Notepad. I was actually typing HTML code. I type code. What are these things now where you can post it, whatever? And I would sit there with a notepad, open Notepad up and type like 200 lines of code. And every time I made a change, I would open a Notepad, do a code, and then save it as an HTML, and that was the website.
And then you'd find a website that had a feature you liked, and you'd look at the source code and lift it.
Right. That's exactly what you did.
Yep.
You'd go in it, you could pull the code, you just yank that thing of code up and do a cut and paste. But I did a lot of that. And as I look back here on the wall, I mean, we were best, Chapter 54 won best SBE website for 2 years. And then I was also the frequency coordinator, and we won best frequency coordinating for a chapter for 3 years. And I was very proud of that because I was doing actually both of those. And then actually when I went, when I did that when I went back to TKR, not the first time because the internet really didn't exist then. But even when I came to Charlotte here in chapter 45 here in Charlotte, I was still the webmaster for 54 for like the first 5 years I was here. And I said, doesn't somebody want to take this thing over? And
no
somebody
good deed
finally
goes
said,
unpunished.
yeah, that's right. So somebody finally took it over, and I was no longer the webmaster for 54, but I enjoyed doing that. You got to do things you enjoy. And everybody kept saying, you can get these apps that you could just cut and put the font. I said, no, because you would actually, just like I said, write code and put the kind of font you want, the size and everything else. But I enjoyed doing that because the frequency thing I finally turned that. I was actually frequency coordinator here, but I turned that over to somebody back in Norfolk. So they just sort of took it all over. But I still go back to the Christmas party. Every year they have a Christmas party in 54. They invite me. I go back. I love going there. I not to pat myself on the back, but I contribute, monetarily to help support the party. And we do that here in Charlotte. We haven't done it since COVID, but we plan to do it this year before I leave. I always have a big barbecue, pork barbecue and fried chicken thing at the transmitter. And I don't ask for donations. I don't have anybody support it. And I pay it out of my back pocket. And we always have about 25 or 30 people show up at the transmitter, and we have a really good time there. And we plan to do that again. We haven't done that since 19, but I want to do it one more time before I leave. Which, speaking of, I'm retired. Today is day 88.
Not that there's a countdown or anything.
Well, today what it is, the people say, "Oh, you got a countdown thing," but what it is with CMG where I work, I had to do the paperwork thing. So every morning I get a task list. So I have this task list thing. In 88 days, you have this task, and that's the sign off on my. So every morning when I open my computer up, I get this task list, and it counts down the days for me. So today was day 88, leaving the 1st of June. It's been 47 years. I always thought that I would do this until they carried me away, but it's time. it's time, and I realized that. I may try to do some freelance not freelance, but contract work as RF for transmitters when I get out of this, and some other things I'm looking at doing. But like I said, I'm a transmitter guy, and transmitter guys are hard to come by. Nobody wants to do that. The only time you can find transmitter guys, if you can find some ham radio operators who still like it, but everybody now wants to deal with computers and networks and IP, and that's where broadcasting is going. I mean, that's where radio is going, and that's where TV is going, and streaming and OTT and everything else. But RF guys are few and far between. And as long as they're transmitters, there got to be somebody out there doing it. So I hope I can go for a few more years doing that for whoever wants me or needs me.
Sure. Well, as they say, you can take the boy out of broadcasting, but you can't take the broadcasting out of the boy, right?
That is very true. Very true. But I've enjoyed doing whatever. Some ask me, why did I wait so long to run for president? And I think you know that story. I won't say who or when, but there was a time when I almost got in, and I was going to run for president. And you know how it goes. You run for vice president and you sort of run for president. So you got to get in at the vice president level. And I said, so I made the call. I called John Poirier in India and said, like, well, we already got so-and-so's running. Well, I know so-and-so, and I don't really want to run against so-and-so. So I said, all right, I'll just step back out. And that was sort of the brass ring went around, and I didn't grab it fast enough. So I've had to go through the cycle of all the whatever to get back in. So, but I enjoy what I'm doing, and don't ever think, in the conversations that we've had, it's not a highlight job. It's actually work. I mean, you actually, as president, you're actually doing stuff. It's not just a highlight thing and a show me thing. It's hard work, but I enjoy every bit of it. I haven't found anything that I didn't like, and I enjoy doing it. And at one time, I thought I was only going to be a one-term guy because my health wasn't too whatever, but I got into it and really enjoyed it. Doctors cleared me to go another year, so I just letting everybody know I will be running for a second term come up the election.
Come up this summer, yep.
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, I for one, am glad you are in the president's chair.
Well, thank you.
I think you're doing
it means
a great
lot.
job.
I've always trusted with you, and you're one of my former presidents, whatever, and I always go there, and you're like one of my big advisors there, Chris. So I always I appreciate your knowledge and opinion.
Appreciate the kind words. So at the top, you mentioned some of the current projects we're working on with the SBE. How about a little bigger picture here? Obviously, when you ran, you had some plans and goals in mind of things you wanted to accomplish. What are some of those? And if they've already started, where do we stand on some of them?
Well, I'm always big on educational and certification. We started something in Columbia at the Columbus meeting where the certification and education committees met together. I know you were part of that. I didn't really start with that, but I thought it was a good idea because what we had is the education where you're educated on what you do, and then you take the certification to sort of show or prove what you learn. And in the past, those all equally important, but they've sort of run parallel. And I'd like to see those two sort of move closer to center and work on common goals. And we've decided now that we, at least once a year, we won't do that in Vegas, but in the fall meeting, both groups will meet together to make sure that each side is given what the other side needs to work out. So that's very important. We've made some slight bylaw changes, which is mostly just some cleanup, some housekeeping things on the bylaws. I'm really interested about this thing in Australia. And we did that, as you know, we did that in Eastern Europe last year and the year before. We started a chapter there, which is very active. That's a very strong group there. And we hope we can accomplish the same thing in Australia and really become a worldwide group. And we did in Canada. I need to pronounce that was something that Andrea did as she went out on the term is to form the Canadian group. Very active in that. Again, we're trying to work with IEEE and BTS on something. So we want to work with other groups, then maybe SMPTE, and we want to expand more worldwide. It's basically stuff that other presidents and other groups have done. And I'm just hoping that we can expand on it out some more and make it more popular.
Very good. And just for those who may not be aware, Andrea Cummis, the previous, currently past president, Ted's predecessor in the president's chair, and Canada being chapter 100. Not our 100th chapter. They actually snagged a number that was available. We got more than 100 chapters.
Yeah.
So it's a little confusing to say, oh, your newest chapter. Well, yeah, but they go higher than that.
Yeah.
So,
and that was one major thing of chapters. We're also trying to get some inactive chapters going again. We're actively going through the list, and we unfortunately have found out some chapters that we have listed are not actually active chapters. So we're trying to clean up the list and make it what you see when you go to the website, and what you see is what you get. And if at all possible, we're trying to start some chapters up. And some of those chapters are really small, but I mean, they do work. I mean, you talk the chapter in Huntsville, Alabama, it's only like 5 guys, but it's an active chapter with the 5 guys. So we're trying to clean that up and doing to just try to get it going again. I know we've worked with some chapters. I've worked with a chapter in Raleigh, getting the chapter in Raleigh, North Carolina going again.
So that's probably a good call to those areas that have a let's say less than active chapter. If you're one of these people and you know that that's your situation, it always takes somebody to kind of step up and get the ball rolling. So please, if this is you and this is your area and your chapter, contact the national office. Let's see what we can do to help you get.
And we'll be more than glad. We'll be more than glad to try to help you. If you've got a chapter and you want to get it going, we will use every possibility for and it's a great. The staff in Indianapolis I can't say enough about them. Great staff. They want to help, and we will do what we can to get you going again.
Absolutely. Anything else on the plans, goals, horizons? Anything even longer term? Since you mentioned you're going to run for a second term, so you've got more time under your belt. I'll say this: it seems like since the officer terms are 1 year long, the first few months go by really fast, or at least they did for me. And before you know it, you're thinking, oh man, my term's almost over already.
That's right.
And whether you've accomplished something or not, it doesn't matter. It still feels like, oh my gosh, the time is running. So it's always nice to have that second term. So now that you've sort of got that breathing space, anything we can peek under the lid and see if there's something else longer term you've got in your mind?
Well, being retired from broadcasting, and that was the other thing. Me, I think silly things was one of the things that I was going to be retired. And I said, well, God, maybe I shouldn't run for a second term because I'm not really in broadcasting. And everybody I brought that up to said, that's just the stupidest thing I've ever heard. We've had other presidents that resigned, and that doesn't keep you. Actually, it actually helps, because now I don't have to worry about this job. I can spend more time doing SBE type things, which actually makes sense. So I got that silly notion out of my head, because everybody I brought that up with just said, you've got to be kidding to even think that. But it'll give me more time to do it. And like I said, we all have things we're dealing with in SBE, as you know, and I'm trying to chop through those and make some things better and make some changes. But they're all little things, and we'll see them as we come along. I really don't have anything, just like I said, trying to expand in the second term what we're working on in the first term. And then, you always try to leave it better for the next guy. Like when Andrea came through, she had set it up and it made it better for me. And I hope to set it up better for the guy behind me. And we'll go for a while.
I don't think you're the first person to think, well, gosh, I'm going to retire. Maybe I shouldn't sit on the board. I can't remember which SBE president it was now, but one of them early on, like in the first 10, 15, had left the station and went into contract engineering full time. And then that person thought, well, gosh, maybe I shouldn't serve as an officer because I'm not at a station. I'm just a contract engineer.
Yeah.
Yeah, broadcasting is broadcasting.
Broadcast market.
Whether
And
you have a
somebody
set
I've
of
had
3 or 4 letters as your employer, or they're your own name, whatever it is, it's all the same work. So
I've had people point that out to me, but it was funny. And you and I talked about this in the past. When most people are presidents and they're on their way out, not all the time, but most of the time, they become a fellow of SBE. And I went back and looked. I was a fellow back whenever, so I was a fellow. That's just how long I've been doing this. I came in and I can't think of anybody that was a fellow before they were elected president. I guess there's somebody somewhere that was, but that just really gives you a snapshot of how long I've been doing this. So, but I wouldn't give it up for anything I do. And if I had to do it all over again, I'd do it the same way.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and check the records. There's probably been someone, but you're right. It's not that common all the time.
Yeah.
For a fellow to then become president as opposed to
Yeah.
earning the fellowship or being awarded fellowship
Yeah.
after you've served. So yeah, so there you go. You'll run for your reelection in this upcoming election in the summer, serve a second term, and then you'll step back to the immediate past president's chair. That's the illustrious position where you're sort of the granddaddy. You get to sit back and fold your arms and
and if people who don't come to
sage.
If people who don't come to these board meetings, the way they do it is, the executive director and the president, the vice president all sit, at one end, and if you always notice, the IPP always sits at the other far end of the table. They just sit way at the far end and just sort of take a wide view of what it is and whatever. But it's like, and like I said, I've been doing it for a long time, and the IPP always sits like the opposite end and just, relaxes back and watches it all go down, which is, I guess they earned that. So
yeah, and it's not necessarily by design, but like we just said, you've done what you're going to do,
right.
and you're sort of in an advisory role. Granted, you're still voting; you're a full member of the board, but you're certainly there as something of an advisor. You've got to tie into at least your past term and usually several terms before, so you're a good bridge from where we are currently to where we came from. So the immediate past presidents have still a valuable position. And there have only been a couple of us who went through the officer ranks, immediate past president, and then went back to the board. Foolishly, perhaps.
Well, you wear that you wear that shirt.
Yep, I did that. Well, in my case, it was Barry Thomas and Vinny Lopez, and there are some others, and I kind of wanted to stay involved because a few of us had kind of laid out some plans for the future that we wanted to pass along, and this way we could help each other and stay involved directly as opposed to sort of on the edges. But not common for that route, but it has happened. So
it is.
Hint, hint, Ted. If you have any eligibility left, we're going to try to get it out of you. So.
Okay, that's well, I feel bad because if I look back here on the thing in 2016, I got this nice thing from I forgot where we were. I think we were in Madison. I don't know where we were. Thank you for all your time and thing with the board and an officer. And it's like the thing you give to the person it's like the gold watch thing that you give to whatever. And now 8 years later, I'm still sitting here talking to you. But that was like my goodbye. We appreciate all you've done for us for the last 12 years.
And you didn't take the hint then.
I didn't take the hint. So like I said, if you've been around that long, it's like a two-edged sword. He's really dedicated and he likes what he does and whatever. And then the other side of that sword is, God, he won't go away.
You're the bad penny, right? We just
can't the bad penny that won't go away. That's right.
Well, Ted, it's been fun catching up with you a little bit and getting some of this out here. Is there anything we haven't touched on that you'd like to share with
no, just I just enjoy being what it is. SBE is still a great thing for broadcasters, like I said, for mentoring and fellowship and education. I want to reiterate the staff in Indy. I can't say enough. And you're not in Indy, but you are part of the staff. Great people. They want to help you. They're there if you need them. It's a resource. Please use it. Again, and we provide a lot of things, and a lot of this is Chris related. We have the WEBxtras, we have the eBlast, we have Signal. We try to communicate and bring everything that helps you to whatever FCC alerts and whatever. I mean, we're there to help you, and we hope that when you pay your membership dues, that I want you to know and make it feel like it was worth it to do it, and I feel that it is. And you get a lot out of that.
Very good. Well, great. Well, Ted, thanks
Okay.
again for taking a little bit of
All
time
right.
with us on this.
And I appreciate you taking the time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the SBE WEBxtra. This has been the SBE WEBxtra, the SBE chapter of the web. We present it monthly, and we hope you'll join us each time. Look for the replay on our YouTube channel. If you hold SBE certification, viewing the SBE WEBxtra qualifies you for 1/2 point in Category G. That's attendance. It's just like attending a local chapter meeting. If you have an idea for a topic or a guest for the SBE WEBxtra, send it to webextra@sbe.org. And that does it for this installment of the SBE WEBxtra from the Society of Broadcast Engineers, the Association for Broadcast and Multimedia Technology Professionals. Thanks again to our guest, Ted Hand, and I'll see you next month.